Local presentation of Read About It is made possible in part by a grant from Cox Communications of Oklahoma City, proud sponsor of this effort to promote reading, education, and literacy in our community. The following public service program is brought to you by the Metropolitan Library System. And now, Read About It with your host, B.J. Williams.
We have a great show for you today, including a talk with Bob Burke and his book and a historical guide to the Governor's Mansion. But first, Susie Beasley is going to talk with Phil Talbert about a great video.
Phil, give us an idea about this video, Self-Esteem for Latino Students.
Well, this is a 21-minute video that is very good for young adults in the Hispanic community to raise their level of self-esteem. It gives a lot of information on the history of the Hispanic culture and things like that that we need to know as people anyway, but it would be helpful to get a good perspective on where you are, where you've been, and where you are able to go from there.
So what makes this video so special? Why are you bringing it to us now? Why are you excited about it?
Well, I think the thing that makes this video stand out is it actually gives you some specific ideas or steps to follow in order to raise self-esteem. And again, this is for young adults, so we're looking at grades 7 through 12.
Okay.
A good age to target in a video like this. It gives you some various steps, like making a list of things that you like about yourself or things that you don't like about yourself, and then looking at ways to celebrate the things you like and to improve on the things that you're not happy with. Getting with people to get advice, adults, celebrating your culture, studying the heritage, things like that. Celebrating, getting involved in cultural events to help learn more about your culture and your history.
And this is all part of a specific study guide?
Yes, there is a study guide that comes with it that gives you questions and ideas for discussion and some guidelines to follow. So yes, very helpful.
It could be used for that.
Yes.
Another thing about this particular video is that you can tie it in with what's going on year-round with the Latino population.
Yes, there are a lot of events going on throughout the year to celebrate Hispanic culture, and yes, that would fall right in line with what this video is suggesting that you do. Our library at Capitol Hill, for instance, we're going to have an information fair on October the 9th to give people an opportunity to come in and see what's available in the Hispanic community. It's a good time for that. But there are
and
other
we
things.
Also have this all published in different newspapers today, like El Nacional, and of course the library, Metro Library Magazine.
Right.
So this video, Self-Esteem for Latino Students, geared for 7th to 12th graders.
Yes.
21 minutes. A lot of history, civilization, culture.
Yes,
and
yes.
It's really, really nice and everything. Well, Phil, this sounds really exciting, and this is available at the local library.
Yes, ma'am.
And perhaps the local video store, we're not sure. Thank you, Phil. Okay.
You're welcome.
I know it is wet, and the sun is not sunny.
Hi, my name is Jose Jimenez of your Metropolitan Library Commission. You know, most experts tell us that if you just spend 20 minutes a day reading to your child, you're not only building a bond that lasts a lifetime, but you're also preparing that child to learn how to read. Check with the experts at your Metropolitan Library for suggestions on just the right books for you and your family. And visit us at our website at www.metrolibrary.org.
Occasionally, instead of reading a book to talk about, I chat with some of my friends who also read books. Recently, I had the opportunity to talk with local attorney John Brewer about a book that he had really enjoyed. I think you'll like what he has to say about it. And John, you brought a book that is very appropriate for the times. This is written by Joseph Wilson, isn't it?
Joseph Wilson, who was an ambassador with the U.S. State Department for 22 years, has written a book called The Politics of Truth. And it is timely considering that this is an election year.
Now, is this the story about the recent events of his life, or does he actually go back and talk about his entire 20 years in the State Department?
Actually, he talks about his entire career with the State Department. He was primarily an ambassador to African nations, although he did do tours with both NATO as an advisor to NATO, and he was actually in Iraq for 2 years and was the ambassador on site at the time that Iraq invaded Kuwait back in 1990.
So he's had what we would call an interesting life?
Oh, a very interesting life. It was and a very interesting fellow. Came from a Republican family out of San Francisco, and was quite kind of a in-your-face type of fellow, especially when he was dealing with the Iraqis during the crisis in 1990. In fact, the Foreign Press Corps had a poll that they were taking as to when the Iraqis would take him, arrest him, and execute him.
Oh, good heavens. But he managed to survive in any event.
He managed to survive and did a great job. And I really was kind of reassured about his stories about both his career events and those of the other ambassadors that he tells about. I mean, if all these people is as competent as Wilson tells us that they are, that's reassuring.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then he gets into and deals with his side of the story about the leak on his wife as well, doesn't he?
Well, yes, he does talk about the events involving the yellow cake uranium thing out of Niger, and the fact that his wife, who works for the CIA, that her identity was revealed by a Washington columnist. He also talks about the fact that when Chris Matthews called Karl Rove to confirm what the rules were, Karl Rove said, well, she's fair game, which was really upsetting to Joseph Wilson, since she was not involved in any of the events that brought him into conflict with the Bush administration.
Right. Now, the title of the book again?
The Politics of Truth.
And you can find this book at your library and your favorite bookstore.
Yes.
It's time now for Kids Corner. Kelly Rhea is going to be talking with Ronna Davis about a great book for our young adults.
Hello and welcome. Ronna Davis is here today, and she's from the Edmond Library. She does a lot of children's services and teen services too.
Teen services and among other things.
You have a plethora of things to do there at the Edmond Library. But you brought a really funny book. It's called Looking for Bobowitz.
This book is kind of a crossover between children's books and teen books. And usually when I come here I talk about teen books, but this book is good for just about any age above 12, I think, and up through advanced adulthood.
Anybody who's got a good sense of humor.
Yeah, anyone who has a good sense of humor. There's a lot of wordplay in this book, and there's certain wordplay that may be picked up on by adults that may not be picked up by children. That's the only very minor criticism I would have of it from the children's standpoint. But from my standpoint, I thought it was just perfect.
Well, we pointed out one of the characters is named Vic Trolla.
Vic Trolla, that's right.
That's lovely.
And he is kind of a connoisseur of course, music, and he runs a pirate radio station in his basement. So, which is difficult to do because I always picture those pirate radio stations as being kind of offshore. But he becomes one of the friends of the hero Ivan Itch. If
Poor
you say
kid.
that fast, Ivan Itch.
What a wonderfully punny book.
It is really, really funny. And Pinkwater, as he is known by many, has a great following, both among adults and among children. So that's why I would recommend this book, because I enjoyed it, and it appeals to my sense of humor, and maybe my mentality is 12 years old and up. I don't know.
It's always good to be young at heart.
And yeah, I think so.
Well, it looks really fascinating. I'm looking forward to reading it myself, and I think that you just can't lose, because reading aloud to kids also helps them be good readers too. So
Absolutely.
Parent and child could read back and forth. We hope that you'll look for this book. It's called Looking for Bobowitz. It's by Daniel Pinkwater, and look for it in your local bookstore or your favorite library.
With me now is Doug Benton, and Doug, it looks like you've got something really interesting there.
I'll turn it around. What you were seeing was the author photo
well,
there.
He actually looks pretty interesting.
It's pretty interesting. Well, actually, this is the man who wrote the screenplay for The Birds, Hitchcock's The Birds. His real name is Evan Hunter, but he has written a series of crime stories going back 50 years now, I guess, about the policeman at the 87th Precinct. Under the name Ed McBain. And he's probably better known as Ed McBain now than he is under his own name. Although as a mainstream novelist, to say he wrote The Birds, and he wrote Blackboard Jungle back in the 50s, which is one of the first juvenile delinquent kind of stories. But the 87th Precinct books, as I say, go back a long way. They are police procedurals, excuse me, which is a type of not usually mystery, but crime story, following the details of the police investigation, generally of several cases at the same time. So you have three of the guys who work in the precinct working on this case, and a couple working on another one, and sometimes they kind of weave in and out. Other times they don't. They're just three separate things that are going on at once. And the 87th Precinct books are usually very accurate. I mean, McBain has kept up with investigatory procedure.
So we're
over the
getting
years.
into DNA and that sort of thing.
Yeah. But he has a continuing bad guy who is a genius con man that they call the Deaf Man. They don't know what his real name is, but the first time we see him, he was wearing a hearing aid. And so he's always called the Deaf Man. And Deaf Man has been in 5 or 6 of the books. And there are, 4 dozen of these novels by now. So he's not in there all the time. But when he comes in, usually the plots are a little bit more fantabulous than they are normally. For instance, in this new book, which is called Hark, what the Deaf Man is doing is sending quotations from Shakespeare and anagrams to the precinct house, and the guys have to figure out what it is he's telling them so that they'll know what the crime is going to be. And you read that, and it's kind of fun to try to figure out the anagrams, but all the time you're thinking, this is not the way police work. Right. Really goes on.
They usually come in after the crime is committed, for one thing.
Right? Yeah. That's very true. But anyway, the book is fun. McBain's writing style, he's very fast. He's very quick to read. Lots of dialogue. Most of the character work is done through the dialogue in the story. It's a lot of the plot progression as well. When he does go into the third-person narration, it's generally pretty glib and quick, and it's easy to read. Anyway, the book is called Hark. It's the new 87th Precinct novel by Ed McBain, and it's not very realistic for a change, but it's a lot of fun.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks, Doug. Coming up next, we have MJ Vandervenner from the Cowboy Hall of Fame. She'll be talking with Charles Rankin, director of the OU University Press. I think you'll enjoy what he has to say about a little bit of Oklahoma history.
Chuck, welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to have you here.
It's nice to be here.
And you have a new book out from the OU Press, My Life with Bonnie and Clyde.
We do. It's a brand new book by John Neal Phillips. John had written a book on Bonnie and Clyde earlier called Running with Bonnie and Clyde on Ralph Fultz, one of their accomplices. But this one is based on the life of Blanche Barrow, who was, of course, the wife of Buck Barrow and the partner of Bonnie and Clyde.
You said that really the story behind the book is just as fascinating as the book itself.
It truly is. John had established himself as a Bonnie and Clyde expert with that earlier book, and Esther Weiser, who was the the executor for Blanche Barrow's estate, and had been a longtime friend with Blanche Barrow. Blanche Barrow, of course, was arrested finally in 1933 and served 6 years in the Missouri prison system, and then went to lead a very quiet life in Dallas, Texas. And she lived to 1988. And Esther Weiser then inherited her estate and just had boxes full of papers in her garage.
What a gold mine.
And kept them for about 12 years and really didn't go through them until after about that time she thought, well, maybe I can get rid of some of them, and started going through them. And lo and behold, in an oversized Christmas card was this account that Blanche Barrow had written in the early 1930s of her escapades with Bonnie and Clyde. So she immediately got a hold of John Phillips, and they got together and then put together this book.
What do you think led Phillips to be so interested in Bonnie and Clyde?
He, as he states in his foreword, he grew up in Chicago, and his father was quite interested in the gangsters of that era. And he grew up with a lot of the Elliot Ness and all of that on his mind, Al Capone and that sort of thing. But his father always told him that the stories that were played on TV were not accurate, and he would rant about how this just wasn't right. And so John Neal Phillips grew up with the whole idea that you can't believe everything, and I want to investigate it
and
further.
So he really has set the record straight.
He truly has.
Well, it sounds like a fascinating book, and we thank you for sharing with us today.
Thank you very much.
And come and see us again.
I will.
With me now is Bob Burke. He is probably the most prolific author of Oklahoma history. Local attorney, you've been in politics, you've done broadcasting, you've done everything.
I'm really 112 years old.
You're really 112 years old. Well, I've been trying to figure out how you fit all of that in. But you do have full-time practice as an attorney here in Oklahoma City.
I practice law full-time and write books both full-time.
Mm-hmm. And you do what? Well, this is the time of year where we have the once a month, it must be Bob Burke's time.
Well, it always seems like I've always have a Christmas book. This year that we're talking about today is a Christmas offering of a history of the Oklahoma Governor's Mansion. So it just seems like toward the end of the year the books pile up and several get released in November and December. This is a 3-book week, in fact.
Oh my goodness. But we're going to concentrate on the Governor's Mansion.
Yes, it's an exciting book. It's actually an update of a book that I did along with my co-author Betty Crow about 5-6 years ago. At the time, the mansion had been redone, so we did a book about the 14 families that had lived. So we've updated that. First Lady Kim Henry has written the foreword to this new offering, A History of the Oklahoma Governor's Mansion. New title, new cover, added a chapter on the Henry family, and then added a lot of other information too, updated things of, unfortunately, we've had some people die and people who've gotten married, and so things are updated, and it's a great recollection of the 15 families who have lived in the Governor's Mansion. And as before, we've tried to concentrate on the first ladies and the children who've lived in the mansion rather than the governors. A lot of things have been written about the governors themselves. We've concentrated on the first families who have added so much to the color and to the history of Oklahoma.
So it's really not a political book in any sense.
No, not
of the
at
word.
all. I mean, it talks more about the type of silver and china that the First Lady chose than it does of the accomplishments of her husband, the governor.
Well, and I was just looking in this book, there's a wonderful picture taken, I think, in the 1930s when you can barely see the mansion because it's covered in vines and 25-foot shrubs.
Oh, really, really? Well, and this is about the mansion. We didn't have a governor's mansion in Oklahoma till 1928.
Good heavens.
Governor Johnston was the first governor who lived there. And so it traces the history, the tough political sell it was to even build a mansion in Oklahoma because we were a poor agrarian state. And we had spent more money than we were supposed to in the Capitol, so why build the governor a mansion, you know?
Right.
And it started out, the plans, just the fight over the political plans and the architectural plans, and how that the building has progressed down through the years. The money from this book, by the way, goes to the Friends of the Mansion, Inc., which has done a wonderful job in recent years to maintain the mansion and will provide for new things in the mansion, especially art, in the future. But it's a neat story about the building itself, about the house itself, the house that Oklahoma built for its governors, for the 15 families who've lived there.
Now, the mansion is actually divided into, I would assume, public spaces, and then there's the part where the family actually lives.
Oh, sure. And there's some neat stories about the private places, because during the years that Alfalfa Bill Murray was governor, he, of course, during the Depression, allowed all of his neighbors to come in and plow up the backyard and plant potatoes and vegetables. He also had read in Leviticus that you're supposed to let your crops go to seed once every 7 years. So there's a wonderful picture that I got from the Murray family that where Alfalfa Bill Murray, as governor and living in the mansion, allowed the mansion lawn to grow about 5 feet tall. So, weird. And talking about this private space, who would have thought in the 1930s, Alice Murray as the First Lady, what would be her main responsibility? Would it be to plan a tea for tomorrow, or plan a quilting bee for ladies over 70? She did do that. But her primary responsibility every night as First Lady of Oklahoma was to place newspapers around the bed of Alfalfa Bill Murray up on the second floor in the private space, because Governor Murray sat there and spit tobacco all night. So her main responsibility was, thank the Lord she did, protect the floors of the mansion. The unique thing about this book is that all except for the Marlins, and of course the Marlins never had children and so there are no heirs, but all of the other, there's one member, at least one member of all the other 14 families who have reviewed their chapters. I mean, Red Phillips's 96-year-old daughter in the state of Washington, and Governor Johnston's 97-year-old son, who lives in the state of Washington, reviewed their chapters, their family's chapters. So we think it's very historically correct.
And it's got some wonderful pictures in it.
Oh, lots of pictures, more than 200 photographs.
I was looking through there and thinking, I experienced some of these fashions. I've lived way too long.
I even learned to spell words like pot de soie.
Oh, you did?
I now know what a pot de soie dress is, you know.
And I'll bet you can distinguish between shades of green, can't you?
I can.
Now, the book was also designed by Carol Harrelson,
yes.
She's won a number of Oklahoma Book Awards for her
Absolutely,
design.
a wonderful designer, and designed many of my books down through the years. She designed the first Governor's Mansion history and has done a marvelous job on this edition.
So we really need to emphasize to people, if they have the first one, they really need the second one.
Oh, absolutely.
To have a set.
Yes, it's a collector's item. You know, some of it may be the same, but you know, I did go out on the limb. It's kind of interesting. This book was printed in China. But it's a marvelous color. So because of that, 3 months ago, I had to say in a cut line under young Dan Boren, who was living in the Boren administration when his dad was governor, I had to go out on the limb and say, in 2004, Dan Boren was elected to Congress from the 2nd District of Oklahoma, creating a rarity in American politics, 3 members of a family in successive generations serving in Congress. Well, this book was printed several weeks before the election, so I'm glad that Dan Boren did win that race so that I don't have to go through thousands of copies and take a magic marker and scratch that out, you know.
Next.
Next, that's right.
Well, you could do that as you sign them.
Well, I guess you could, yeah.
So, but this would make a marvelous Christmas present, both for people here in Oklahoma, anybody who has relatives outside of the state. That would
Absolutely,
be really
because I think
neat
it does
well.
create pride in Oklahoma. We have a beautiful Governor's Mansion, and we really have done a lot to preserve the heritage in the Governor's Mansion, and it would be a marvelous book for Christmas.
Well, and a look back at where we have been in Oklahoma, because even if you're not discussing politics, the feel of living in the state in the 30s or the 40s or whatever is
and the
going to come
photographs
through.
make it so special. Very special photographs. Many of the families, Bob Kerr's children brought me family pictures that have never been printed before. And several of the governor's families gave pictures for the book that nobody's ever seen before. So it's a wonderful book.
So without really disturbing anybody's privacy, we get a really neat look at the private part of the mansion.
Yes, we do.
Because I
There are
know
pictures of dog houses in there.
dog houses. Oh, good. Well, I'm going to rush out and buy it. Yeah, well, we can get a picture of one of those and build our own dog house to
Yes.
look like the governor's dogs.
I think we can.
Well, I know a couple of times a year the mansion is open to the public, but this would give us, as we've already said, a really neat background of the history of it, and also a peek into those parts of it we're not allowed in as the public. So, and have you got other books coming out?
Oh yes, I have a book called Traveling Timber Towns, which is an Americana town in southeast Oklahoma. Back at the turn of the 20th century, forestry companies would come in and build towns, and then when they cut out all the trees, they moved those towns. Kind of a neat book. Biographies of John Nichols and Herman Minders, both great Oklahoma commercial successes, businessmen. Other books, working on a Bob Kerr biography, so a lot of things going on.
And we're going to see you next month.
Yes, we will.
Thanks very much, Bob.
Thank you.
Bob Burke has been telling us about a history of the Oklahoma Governor's Mansion. You can find it at your library and your favorite bookstore.
Hi, I'm Donna Morris, Executive Director of your Metropolitan Library System. You know, experts tell us it's never too early to begin reading to a child. If you spend just 20 minutes a day reading to a child, you're not only building a bond that lasts a lifetime, but you're helping that child to prepare to learn how to read. Visit us at the Metropolitan Library System and let us help you select just the right books for you and your family. And be sure and visit our website at www.metrolibrary.org.
I'm back with Doug, and it's time for the Writer's Almanac. And I know, Doug, usually you go first because you've got all the literary dates, but I've got to jump in with this one. Absolutely.
Go ahead.
1731, November the 8th, Benjamin Franklin opened the first library in America, or in what would become the United States of America.
Yeah, very nice. That is a good date to remember.
Yes, it is, especially since this is a library show, but...
Oh, yeah, that.
Yeah, that.
We forget sometimes.
What do you got for us?
On November the 7th is the anniversary of the date of the birth of Albert Camus in 1913, the existentialist novelist and essayist, who once said, "The only thing is to decide which is the most aesthetic form of suicide, marriage and a 40-hour-a-week job or a revolver." Not a lot of laughs, Mr. Camus. And the 8th is the birthday of Margaret Mitchell, who was born in 1900. Mitchell, of course, was the author of one novel, but it was a big one.
Oh, indeed.
In many ways.
Yeah, I was
Gone with
say.
the Wind, yes. The story is that she was kind of embarrassed about being a novelist and didn't want to turn the book in, but somebody told her, you know, you'd make a terrible novelist. So she turned the book in, and the rest is history, as they say.
Absolutely. And you can check out Gone with the Wind and works by Albert Camus and works about and by Ben Franklin at
your public library?
Your public library. www.metrolibrary.org. You can find out all about it there. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you again next time.